Your beliefs become words, words become actions, actions become habits, and habits determine where you go. This is the Motivation Factor Podcast. Hey friends, you're on another episode of the Motivation Factor Podcast. And I have a personal friend of mine here, Tyler Wellness. Now, Tyler's I could personally consider him a high performance coach, but really what Tyler's specialty is he helps turn your talents into income, right? And you can find him at tylerswellness.com. So TYLERS wellness.com. At the conclusion of this podcast here, also on all social media platforms, Tyler's_wellness. You can catch him there, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it, TikTok. He's on there. Tyler, what's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Honestly, doing pretty great. How about yourself, Michael?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for asking. Listen, man, I want to get into this today, man. I'm super excited to have you on the show. So my goal on every show is really to add value-based content for the listener so they're better after than before they had listened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to talk about really two things, man. I want to see where this conversation goes, and it's really on focus and perspective.
I love it. Love those two powerful
man.
moves.
And I know that you speak about, these two words, these principles, these key principles that I talk about in my new book, Discovering Your Talents and Giftings, which is on Amazon.com. Quick shameless plug there. Yeah, man. So let's talk about, let's talk about focus for a second. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So let me lead in with this. I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. Life is all about the decisions that you make and in the seasons that you make them in, and how long you're willing to focus. That duration really kind of determines your outcome overall, man. What do you think about focus? What do you think about that?
I really like how you put that, because there's a book that I had read by Rory Vaden, and he says, this quote, working double time, part time, so we can achieve full time, free time. So, it's putting that focus in right now. You're doing it double time, so then you can have that goal, for the full time. So, it's very powerful when just the same way you wrapped it up there. He says it in those four little words there. Double time, part time.
I love that. And, I think about focus, right? And you can apply that to anything. Like you can apply focus to your routine, like the morning formula that I have, right? Where I have my affirmations in the morning, because then now we can talk about auto-suggestion and how that works and subliminal messaging and how you're reworking the neural pathways in your mind. And literally everything comes down to focus, right? Because you can have a game plan, because it first starts with a game plan. It first starts with desire and having a game plan, right? But then you can have the best game plan in the world, dude. But if you don't have focus, you ain't going to get it done. Would you agree or disagree?
I agree 100%. Going everywhere like a chicken with its head cut off.
Yeah, man, exactly. And it's like, I was hearing High Performance Habits, book by Brendan Bouchard, I think, rated the number one high performance coach in the world. And I love that book because he is all about data and facts, regardless of feelings, even though he's mindful of your feelings. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Data and facts, or so he seems like one. So he talks about in one of his conferences, he was recording it, he posted it online, and this one kid was feeling bad. And because he's like, man, this is my third conference with you, man. And it's always life-changing every time I come. But then I'll leave the conference and then I am so focused and I'm after it. Massive action with massive amounts of energy for like 3 months. And then I just fall off. And I'm listening to this and I'm like, oh, that's good. Because in my mind, I'm like, 3 months, 24/7 focus. That's a
heck yeah.
That's a lot. Like that's
is
good. But then the way he was telling Brendan this, it was like, I was feeling like, that's not enough, bro. If you're a high performance player, man, you got to get after this, man. Like your whys are not big enough, man. You need a bigger dream, man. You got to get refocused, organized, and take action. And then, Brendan said something that was crazy to me. Crazy because when he said it, I didn't expect that. He goes, you know what? Let's just stop right there. And he looked at the crowd and he goes, can we just give a round of applause to this man? I forget the guy's name. And he said his name. Can we give a round of applause? Because he was consistently focused. He had a batch of focus for 3 months at a time. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, you're right. Because then Brennan
Yeah.
was saying, he's like, dude, he's like, honestly, for me, I'm 1 to 2 months of nonstop focus, and then I got to take like 2 or 3 or 4 days off. Like I do that,
Mm-hmm.
and he was making the joke, but he was serious. Like, before I had any money, I just
Right.
I'd go to the park and hang out if it was nice out with my wife. But now I take trips and I vacation. I do things like that. Um, but before he was talking about how, dude, 1 to 2 to 3 months, like that's really super
I
cheap,
know. It
right?
really is. Mm-hmm. You got to give
Okay.
yourself more credit for what it's worth. Like, you got to look back at your journey, no matter if it was 1 month, 2 months, or three, like you did something that some people don't even start.
Right. And he was
So,
saying, so it's so funny you say that, Tyler, because that's exactly what he was talking about. He was talking
mm,
about how, yeah, most people don't even start. So the simple fact that you're able to focus for 2 or 3 months, and then he identified the issue, right? That I
mm,
call it limiting belief. The limiting belief that this gentleman had was after the 2 or 3 months of focused effort and he got good results, was the guy would then just beat himself up, and then it would last, the days would turn into weeks would turn into months, until he signed up for
mm,
another conference, and then and when it got repumped up. So he was doing the right things action wise, but his mindset, right, his lens, his perspective wasn't right.
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Precisely.
Which leads back to the second thing I wanted to talk about was perspective, man. So I know I've been talking
Mm-hmm.
a bit, man. So I want you to go off a little bit, man. Talk to me about perspective and how it plays a part in the everyday entrepreneur, in the everyday young and or older person building their business, or people who are in their day-to-day jobs, man, are doing what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. So perspective has been huge for me, especially in my entrepreneurial journey, as well as just self-development in general. Because we all go through life, and until we add more perspectives to it, and essentially perspective is just ways to look at life, ways that you can look at situations. Until you have more perspectives, you only see life through the lens that you've grown up to believe to be true. And you won't understand that someone who's gone through certain events in their life may not see things the way you do. And once you start to introduce yourself to more people, and you start actually listening to what people say, and resonating with them on like just a person to person level, and you get to experience all these different lenses of people and how they feel and think, then you change the way that you're operating through your life, because now you see that you were just doing what you thought was the only way, and now you have multiple options. You see that if you want to start a business, you have multiple options. You might have thought it might have had to been brick and mortar, but with the internet, and seeing that you can start with just a landing page of a .com, you know like, just add these new perspectives to your life, and anything's possible once you just start taking small actions. It might look hard and grand when you see someone who's already done it, but once you see the small steps that they took every day to get there, that's a brand new perspective in itself. It's like, oh, now I see the small things I can do daily to achieve that grand goal that you did. So
Yeah, I
yeah, just
wanna. That's so good, man. Thank you for sharing that,
of
man.
course.
Perspective, because the other thing about perspective too is like you could be doing all the right things, right? Like action wise, like you have the solid game plan, right? You have
Hmm.
steps A through Z. You know what you have to do, man. You could be like Elon Musk, who I read, man. Some days he has it broken down by minute, like 5 minute blocks of what he's doing,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And but if you don't have the right perspective, you could be taking all the right action and doing the right things and still feel like trash at the end of the day, that week or that month,
Mm.
right?
So true.
Not giving
Exactly.
yourself enough credit, man, right? And so let
Hmm.
me ask you this from your standpoint, from your mindset, your beliefs, and everything that you know to be true,
Hmm.
how does one develop that right perspective?
I think it's a really tough question to answer, because I think it all depends on the situation
Mm,
specifically for that person.
okay.
Um, and when I look at my life as everything being practice, um, because that's one thing that I did also read in a book, is that sort of added that type of perspective to my lens, is everything can be practice. It for me, it's like, if I'm going through a hard situation right now, there's a lesson that I can learn from this that'll make a future event easier, or something, give me a virtue or something that I can take with me to make something else easier in the future. So that's one of the things, like, personally, adding the perspective of just like, I can learn something from this has made it so much easier for me. And I think most people can, do that as the same, say everything is practice.
Wow, that's good. I like that. And to add to that, I've heard it said, and I'm a firm believer that practice doesn't make perfect, especially if you're not doing the right actions, but it does
Hmm.
make permanent, right? So practice
Exactly.
doesn't make perfect, but it makes permanent, right?
Mm.
Um,
Exactly.
right, right. And the other thing about
Small.
perspective, right? And another thing, and I love books, man. I think it's one tool of the mentor. I put out a podcast before talking about, the different, the power and process of mentorship. But anyway,
Mm.
um, quick plug for those who are listening and watching to see the other one. But talking about perspective, right? Like gaining proper perspective. Like I believe success leaves clues, and you and me have talked about this offline, um,
Hmm.
where you could get the right perspective. So you said situationally, which I completely agree, right? Like if I'm
Hmm.
looking to build, we're talking entrepreneurship for a second. Like if I want to start a Shopify store, right? Let me
Yep.
find somebody who's succeeding in maybe a similar niche or the same niche, and then let me see what they did, right? Because
Hmm.
now the lens, my perspective of how I see things, the back end, how do I build this store? Like, how do I connect this? Like, how do I create a form of payment? Like all these things, like how do I edit or how do I add photos so people can see so all this stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
perspective, right? And maybe the task that seems so daunting, that's so big, once you have the right perspective,
It's
you know,
like easy.
right, right, right. And it's like, the saying is, how do you eat an elephant? Number one, you'd ask, why do I want to eat one? But for the sake of the example, it's one bite at a time, right?
Hmm.
So
You
basically,
just
the
started
principle is
small.
taking something big, but how do you tackle something so monstrous, so big, bigger than you that you don't think you can accomplish? Is you break it down, you reverse engineer it step by step, right? You start with the end.
Hmm.
You start with the end in mind when we're talking about perspective, and then leading back to focus, right? I'm thinking about this, man, where life's all about the decisions that you make and the seasons that you make them in, but then following
Mm.
through by being focused, and what you start, make sure you finish. And then I think focus is that common denominator to see you through to the end. Because if you lose focus, you get distracted, you don't finish what you start. And what started off so promising and what you were so excited about, because you felt
Hmm.
like, man, I'm blessed to be a blessed and I can make an impact in these people's lives. So I'm going to do this. But then it got hard and I didn't know what to do. And then I got distracted because I wasn't focused. I didn't have the right
Oh.
perspective. Right? What are your thoughts
Mm.
on that, man? How does perspective and focus really? Because dude, you're a multiple business owner, man. You're killing it in the game. I know you have a
Thank
few
you.
Shopify stores, man.
Yep.
I know you got your online motivational content, man. You're in process of writing a book, man. We won't speak in more detail on that, but that's for you to talk about. But how does focus and perspective for you as a young person, man, really play into doing all these things?
So personally, it's kind of just how you had mentioned before, taking the large scale goal and really kind of chunking it down into smaller achievable things that I can do daily.
Mm.
Next to me, I have a calendar here. And personally, what I do is I have my large, goal. I want to personally be retired before 25 and I'm only 22, you know? So large goal being that. So how do I achieve that goal? I break it down a little bit, multiple streams of income. So then I've started a
Mm.
few stores and then trying to like build a business to make websites because now that's a skill that I had that I could turn to income because I've built
Oh,
it for myself.
talents
You
to
know,
income. Okay.
exactly.
What better what better way to teach it when you're actually doing it? That's good.
Precisely. And that's so I then along that journey, as I was doing that, I learned that people, teach other people what you're doing. And one, like you can give that all like I'm doing like now on, video, like showing people exactly how to do it. It literally, one, it helps other people, but that's how we all eat, we all can do this. It's just a matter of getting started and empowering other people and speaking on the journey and showing people it's possible. Because rather than just telling and pointing the finger, we can show them the way, you know?
Right. And what better,
And
and it's almost, go ahead. I'm sorry. Continue, go.
oh, oh, you're good. I just wanted to tie it back down to, the focus, because that was more perspective of how I have the larger goal and then I start, shrinking it down to smaller things, being the perspective. And for focus, the fact that I write it down and I revisit it almost daily
Mm.
is how I maintain that focus because it's somewhere that I do see it often and it's a constant reminder that keeps me on track towards that goal. And some days, this is one quote that I got from David Goggins, whose book Can't Hurt Me. Um, Motivation is just kindling. It's nothing more than just that. It can get you started, but some days you'll get knocked off that motivational train. You have to understand that when you understand your why, you'll keep focused. You determine that. You got to pull in the troops, and you're the troops.
Right. Yeah, especially when you're starting, right? Dude,
Exactly.
man, that's so good, David Yockins. You can't hurt me. Man, that's so good. Where
Hmm.
motivation is the kindling. And that's exactly my goal with my podcast, with my book, with my content. It's just, dude, it's that kindling. It's literally helping you to realize, man, God already gave you everything that you need on the inside of you. Now let's access that, right? There's certain principles
Exactly.
that you apply. You need perspective, you need focus, right?
So powerful.
Well, you motivated me, Tyler. So if nobody else
Oh,
gets motivated right off this podcast, right? I'm
hey,
motivated.
we motivate each other here.
Cool, man. That's what's up. So listen, man, honestly, man, that's all the time really we have on the podcast. So let me say this, some parting words, man. What do you have, man? To the people that are listening, man, maybe some motivational, man, inspirational, really some parting words that you have for the listeners.
Whatever it may be that is going on in your world right now, when you write down your focus, make sure that you revisit that focus every day, because that other stuff will always be there. But when you decide to do something for yourself, making yourself a priority, you actually take control of your life, and you have the ability to do this. So why not, write the script for your life? You're the author of this story, write the best one possible.
Ooh, let's go, man. Oh, with that being said, guys, listen, that was Tyler Wellness, who can be found on tylerswellness.com. Also, Tyler's with an
Hmm.
S _wellness on most major social media platforms, man. Give them a listen, check them out. And guys, we'll see you
Hmm.
on the next episode. Tyler, man, thanks for spending some time with us, brother.
Ain't no problem at all. Hopefully, don't forget to follow this podcast.
Hey, the Motivations Factor podcast. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks,
Actions
guys.
become habits, and habits determine where you go. This is the Motivation Factor podcast.